Two guys in their early 50s with one dream, to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Yes, welcome back, pilgrims. It certainly has been a busy 2 weeks, personally with quite a bit of travel and, of course, with some prep for the New South Wales Country Championships, which will form the bulk of today's topic for this episode. This is all about the ultimate guide to prepping for a tournament, so that's what we'll be talking about today. But look, unfortunately, Andy Walker is still travelling. He's over in Malaysia at the moment. So this is my turn to do a solo episode. Never fear, though, because Andy, even though he's on a family holiday at the moment, has been kind enough to provide some of his thoughts on the topic of tournament prep. So we'll definitely be sharing those throughout the episode. So you'll still hear his dulcet tones dropped in throughout the conversation. But look, before we get into all of that, I do have a few responses to some of the voice of the pilgrims. You might recall last episode we welcomed Tony Enos into the Missing Links Golf Show Yearly Championship with a bang, taking out the month. And as a result, we asked to hear a little bit more about him. Well, pilgrims, the good news is that Tony got in touch with us via the Missing Links Golf Show podcast Facebook group, shared a bit about himself, that he's listening to us from the northeast of the USA. We're not sure exactly where, but somewhere in the northeast, so take your pick. He says he took up the game only in 2018, so 7 years ago, and has now added his very own high-performance centre into his garage. So that is indeed exciting stuff, and nice work, Tony. Welcome to the Missing Links Golf Show family. On that topic, Andy and I have been somewhat intrigued to see some pretty consistent download numbers coming to us from Iceland. We of course now are global. We're in 51 countries around the world, but certainly Iceland is one of the ones that's piqued our interest just a little bit more. And, given that we love hearing about everyone that listens to us. So if you are one of the pilgrims listening to this in Iceland, then please get in touch with us. Let us know your story. We want to hear about golf in Iceland. We want to hear all about what it's like living and playing golf over in that part of the world. So please get in contact. So on to today's topic, which is my preparation for the 2025 New South Wales Country Championships. Interestingly, it's a tournament I would not have been able to qualify for if it wasn't for the last round at Country League that we talked about in episode 92. And that 38 points was the round that got my handicap down below the qualification mark in the week before the entries closed. So that was pretty special. So look, realistically, this is not something that we or that I was ever really planning on being involved with. But given the opportunity, I thought, why not? So here we are. Now we're 2 days before the event. And I thought probably, before I get too much into the actual preparations for the event, I should probably give an update on how the prep has been coming along since qualifying up to this point in time. So after that round, which we discussed in episode 92, I unfortunately have not really been able to get out onto the course for any competitive rounds, and to be honest, very little practice as well, which has been somewhat frustrating. So that was about 4 weeks without any real meaningful opportunities to hit balls, and without too much of a surprise, things have gotten a little bit rusty. So on Saturday just gone, I did get a chance to play a competition round at Bathurst with a friend of the show, Donnie from Bathurst. I could only manage 32 points, though, which equated to 85 off the stick. And scores aside, I think what was most concerning is that the driver performance that I have come to rely on so much in recent times, and where I've been gaining shots pretty consistently against a scratch player, I actually kind of lost it a little bit in that round and ended up losing 3.29 shots off the tee. So that actually hurt quite a bit, and it got, if I'm completely honest, in my head just a little bit over the last week in the lead up to the Country Champs. The good news, though, is approach play had improved. That was only at 1.05 shot lost against a scratch player. So iron striking was definitely improvement by more than a full shot, actually, against the last 10 rounds. Short game at minus 2.44 was a half a shot improvement. It didn't feel amazing, but it is slowly improving for where it's been. And putting was worse by about 2.5 shots, but again, not too concerned about that because the greens had just been caught and top dressed at Bathurst. So I don't really think that had any real bearing on. Well, I don't think putting really we should be reading too much into. I still feel pretty confident with how things are coming along with putting. So look, with that in mind, the focus this week has been to try and get out onto the course with the limited daylight that I've had to work with after work to try and regain some of that driver feel. So I squeezed in 8 holes on Monday with friend of the show, Jimmy from Orange. Unfortunately, the driver was still quite not where we wanted it to be, though. So it was unusually missing with a big block and/or block cut out to the left, being a left-hander. And that's something that I have not seen in quite some time. So I gave that some thought and was wondering about whether or not that was an alignment issue, whether that was a grip issue that had slightly weakened. So I have literally just come back from a bit of time back out on the course now trying to sort that out. I can confidently say that there is no alignment issue. I've been lining up still where I'm looking to aim the ball. Grip seems to be okay. What seems to have happened is that I had probably stopped trying to hit up on the ball a little bit and as a result getting a little bit slappy into the ball, which has been causing that block cut. So I did have some really good progress this afternoon, which is good news. So hopefully that continues into the weekend and becomes reliable as it has been again. But look, at the end of the day, I'm going to have to do the best I can with the game that I've got on the day. I'm choosing the attitude of embracing the challenge of solving the puzzle and trying not to get too caught up with fighting my swing or playing, making sure that I play golf, not golf swing. So that is the focus very much for the weekend. We're going to look at this from a challenge and a positive perspective rather than a fearful perspective of how it could go wrong. So with all of that said, let's turn our focus to the weekend ahead. My plan is to take you through how I plan to approach the event and to share some wise words of advice that I've received in the build-up from a number of people. It is my hope that this will give you some good tips and ideas for how you might approach your next event. Now, whether that's a tournament like this, whether that's just a club competition, or even just a day out with mates where you want to perform your best and maybe take a couple of dollars off them. So that's the aim for this little episode, this special edition. So to start with, I know you've all missed Andy Walker so much, so I am going to start with some words that he sent through to me from his family holiday in Malaysia. So over to you, Andy Walker. What's your first piece of advice?
G'day, mate. Just thought I'd put together a couple of bits of advice for you for the coming weekend. I know you got the New South Wales Country Championships coming up, and just wanted to send you something just to maybe calm the nerves a little bit, just to put you in the right mindset. I know we talk about mindset a lot on the show. So my first bit of advice coming from one of the greats of the game, which is Gary Player. Now, about sort of 10 or 15 years ago, he put together a great book, one of the greatest books, I think, written on the game. And really the title says it all. So my first bit of advice taken from the title of Gary Player's book from 10 or 15 years ago, don't choke.
Yeah, nice work. Helpful as always, Andy Walker. You're probably not quite as funny as you think you are, but nevertheless, all jokes aside, this is actually a good reminder about not letting the occasion get too overwhelming. Probably worth actually just reflecting on what choking means, and that is, kind of by definition, that is where you allow your anxiety or your nerves to prevent you from accessing your skills and from being able to play freely. So that's an interesting perspective, because really that means how do we deal with that and how do we deal with the nerves? Undoubtedly there will be nerves. There always are on tournament days. I don't know, I've played enough now to understand that. And I think, look, the attitude is that understanding that nerves are good. They simply mean that you care. By definition, they are a response to caring about something that has an uncertain outcome. So, look, I think the thing there really is about don't fight the nerves. I understand what they are, and to pre-accept all outcomes and direct my focus back onto the process. So rather than trying to worry about how things are going to go at the end of the day, just really focusing on the process of approaching every shot with full concentration. I think the other thing is to remember that the outcome of the tournament doesn't define you as a golfer. It certainly doesn't define you as a person, but it's just another step on the development ladder. So looking at it like that, it changes it from a win-lose situation, not even a win-learn situation, because that still has the feeling of good, bad outcome. But regardless of how it goes from a score perspective, this is a learn situation. Doesn't mean that I don't care about the outcome. Of course I do. It just means that I care more about how I stick to the mental and physical process than the outcome of either of the 2 days, because I cannot control the outcome. I can only control the process and the effort that I put into every shot. I've heard it said that the outcome by definition will always exist in the past or the future, and therefore you cannot control it. The only thing that you can control is what you're doing in the present moment, and that's obviously where you need to have your focus. But that's also the thing that needs to take your energy. So, yeah, good point, Andy Walker. What else? What else have you got to say for yourself over there in Malaysia? Let's have a bit of a listen to Andy's next piece of advice.
All right, next piece of advice, and that is both mornings that you're playing, both Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you leave yourself enough time to warm up. Don't shave it too close to your tee time. So even if you get there an hour and a half before your tee time, that's okay. That just gives you a chance just to relax, just to get your head out of the car, into what you're doing. Give yourself a decent warm up. You might have some water just to hydrate yourself. Make sure you go to the bathroom. Just do all those little things that you do as part of your normal routine, but just give yourself enough time just to do those without rushing. The worst thing you can do before, especially a competition round, is to jump out and not have enough time to warm up properly, so you feel rushed when you get to the first tee. You need to be able to, if they've got some warm-up facilities, get fully warmed up, get the speed of the greens, just so you can get yourself into that headspace to jump on the first tee and be ready to rip.
Yeah, that's actually a good suggestion. Finally, we're getting some quality out of Mr. Walker. It's also one that's easy to get wrong, especially when turning up at a new course, and particularly on a big day like this when everything feels different. And in particular for an event like this, which is a shotgun start, so there's 120 competitors all trying to use the warm-up facilities at the same time, all trying to, probably there's 3 warm-up nets, for example. There's only a small putting green to get ready. So I don't believe there's a range actually at Cowra. So, that's another challenge. So having to ensure that I get there in time to actually get my time in the nets and warm up properly is super important. I'd say efficiency is key as well. Using what time and what facilities are available as well as I possibly can is probably a really important point. Also making an effort to prioritise mental preparation, I would think, is probably something which is important as well. And that, that could be the time in the car driving to the course, or even just taking a moment on arrival at the course to sort of just emotionally settle and absorb the surroundings before launching into trying to hit balls in a warm-up. So, yeah, I think there's definitely a few good things in there, a few good nuggets, and it's very, very nice to hear some sensible input from you, Mr. Walker. So, having said that, it may in fact be worthwhile to listen to your next tip, see what you've got to say for yourself now.
Okay, next piece of advice, and pretty similar to the last piece of advice that I provided, and that is just to stay in the present moment. Get your head where your feet's at. I know that's a favourite saying of yours. but it's critical, especially when you're playing tournament golf, to stay in the present moment. We talk about time travel, so don't time travel back when you've had a double bogey or worse, or time travel forward and get too excited or anxious about the score that you may or may not shoot. Get yourself into the present moment, focus on your process, and just let the round play out.
Yeah, super advice. It is always, always so hard to remember that golf is just a collection of unrelated individual moments, not a string of connected events. When you put a couple of bad swings together, hit a couple of bad shots, get a couple of bad bounces, so important to remember that the next shot is the one that counts, and the ones that have gone before cannot be played again and are in the past. So you can only play the shot that is in front of you in the present moment. The temptation to travel to the past and the future is going to happen, and that's okay. And to deal with that, I think I've found that one of the best ways to keep in the moment on the course is actually to have a really solid pre-shot routine. And when I talk about that, I don't just mean the number of practice swings or the waggles or, the number of looks at the target or anything like that. I'm talking about the process. So I'll take you through the process that I intend to be using. This is one thing that I've been building over a little while now. We've talked about it in a number of our episodes, but my intention is to follow this process for all shots. And to be honest with you, if I can do that, regardless of the outcomes, then that's actually a successful day. So we'll start with when approaching the shot or when standing behind the ball. The first thing is to assess the lie, the wind, and the elevation, just to figure out what kind of a shot we can play, what external factors are going to be involved here. And that will help then with step 2, which is deciding on a yardage and actually really committing and deciding on the yardage that I want to hit the ball to, for where that target is. So from that is selecting the club that will easily get there, not selecting the club where that's like on the limit of 100% swing, but really selecting a club that will cover that distance, commit to the target and the shot shape. And then step 5 of this, before we step over the ball process, is pre-accepting all outcomes. So if we've figured out exactly our yardage, we've picked a target, we've committed to the target, committed to the shot shape we want to play, and then we pre-accept all of the outcomes. Now that's going to enable me to step up and make a free swing. So at that point, when we step into the ball, the focus is purely on execution, single-mindedness on the target, take one last look at the target, and then execute the swing. That is the process. Now, once that's done, the post-shot routine, which is also important, is just 3 simple questions. Question 1, did I execute my process? Question 2, was my decision-making on target and club choice correct? And then question 3, what did I learn? So that might be, did I make a mental error, a club calculation error, or was it a physical swing technical error that I can do something about? So if I can follow that process, then I think that will lead to more free swings and therefore better shots. Also important, though, to accept that there are going to be some good shots, there are going to be some mediocre shots or good enough shots, there are going to be some poor shots. I need to accept them all, review them with facts and not opinions, which means, just simply looking at it was that fat? Was it thin? Was it a toe strike? Was it a bad decision? Was it bad strategy? Was it good strategy, a good decision, etc.? What can I learn from that? Rather than looking at it, with an emotional lens of going, oh, I'm playing badly, I don't have it today, or any of, this is one of those days, or any of those types of things. Or, gee, I'm good today, I can't do anything wrong. All of those types of judgment type statements, need to stay away from those. So I definitely give a big shout out to Josh Nichols from the Mental Golf Show for his great advice in this area. I've listened to a couple of things that Josh has had to say on the topic, and it's definitely helped in terms of getting that straight. And talking about people that I respect, actually, I recently also caught up with another guy who shared some of his great insights on this topic, especially for how to deal with some of those moments when things aren't necessarily going your way, where you may have played a poor shot and landed yourself in a little bit of trouble. So let's just nip to that, which was a recording from a little bit earlier in the week. So I'm here with someone that knows my game probably better than anyone, that's seen me play more golf in the last couple of years than probably anyone I could think of. a man whose opinion I respect. Junior Mr. Hinks, welcome to the Missing Links Golf Show.
Hey.
So, obviously, New South Wales Country Championships coming up at the end of the week. You were there on the weekend, saw my swing and my game. What advice have you got for me for this weekend?
Just if it doesn't go your way, don't get angry and just use the recovery team to get back onto the fairway and play your best game.
Mate, that is awesome advice. Thank you so much. I'll put that into practice. Any other wise words?
Attempt a hole-in-one.
Nice. All right, we'll see how we go. Honestly, what a legend. Such great insights from such a young dude who would have known that he's only 12. But anyhow, hopefully the young man will be coming along as caddy for the event, which I think would be just so cool. It may cost me a couple of extra dollars, who knows, maybe a burger on the way home. But I have no doubt that his wisdom will absolutely be worth it. So, yeah, I'm very proud of the young man. And look, speaking of wisdom, Andy has also shared some good suggestions on how to actually stay in the present moment when things do get a little bit tense, with a bit of a technique to use. So we might skip to that now.
All right, my next bit of advice, and this is something that I know you moved away from probably 12 months or so ago. We started talking about it, and I think it came up in the aftermath of the New South Wales Country Championships last year, and that you'd gone away from your breathing techniques during the round. I know that early in our podcast journey that you'd started using breathing techniques through your competitive rounds, and I really think you need to be focused on breathing. That will calm your nerves. It'll calm your mindset. I know you used the box breathing. That's one of your favourite sort of go-to breathing techniques. So if you're feeling just a little bit of tension, you might be having a good round, 12, 13 holes into it, you start sort of time traveling to try and figure out what sort of score that you're gonna shoot. Just bring yourself back to the present and just focus on that box breathing. I think that's probably one of the best things you can do, is just bring yourself back to the present, focus on your breathing, and just let the round play out as it does.
Good advice, Andy Walker. I think breathing is really, really important, and you're right. Probably something I've forgotten from time to time, but when I have used it, it's been very effective. I also think doing something as quick and simple as putting a deep breath into the pre-shot routine before addressing the ball. So go through all of the decision-making steps that I talked about, all the commitment steps, and as part of that pre-acceptance just before stepping into the ball, a big breath in, big breath out, just to regulate the nerves a little bit is probably a very good idea. So that might be something that I look to do as well. So that's been a lot about talking about staying in the moment and focusing on process rather than outcome. So beyond sort of that mental sort of stuff, what else might we want to think about? And I'm fortunate that my wonderful podcast partner, Andy Walker, has given a few thoughts about that as well. So what's your next piece of advice, Andy Walker? What else have you got for me?
Next piece of advice taken from the great man himself, Tiger Woods, and that is to play aggressively to conservative targets. I know you've already been through the course with ShotScope, and you've looked at your landing areas, you've looked at your targets, which is a really, really good thing. Make sure you stick to your strategy and play aggressively to conservative targets. Even if you've had a couple of poor holes, you might be frustrated. The best thing you can do is just to stick to your process, stick to your game plan, and stick to your strategy. And that's going to put you in the best position to shoot the best round you can.
It's very good advice, and you're right. I have been through the course. Probably worth mentioning shotgun start. So we have had the draw sent out, and I am starting on the fourth hole. So the fourth hole is a par 4, and I am going to take you through my hole by hole. This is what I've had a look at, and this is what I think I'll be doing off the tee and just some thoughts. It's obviously a two-dimensional view of the course, so I haven't been able to see sort of the undulations up and down. I haven't been able to see specifically the sizes of trees and some of those sorts of things. What I can say is there doesn't look to be too much in the way of hazards. There's some bunkering, not a huge amount, but difficult to see. It's also difficult to know where there are the places to not miss on certain greens as well. So I'll be looking to learn that on day one. But nevertheless, starting on the fourth hole, which is par 4, 340 metre hole, straight, pretty straight. There is OB up the left side, which does not look that far from the fairway actually. So the play here, I think there's no reason not to hit driver, but when hitting driver, it is going to be important to have the aim point on the right edge of the fairway to manage the dispersion pattern and try and keep that as much as possible in play the entire golf course to the right-hand side. So we really want to be aiming up the right side to give ourselves the best chance. A good drive here will get a short iron into the green, so that's definitely an opportunity with a good tee shot. The next hole, the fifth hole, is a par 3. Looks to range somewhere between about 120 to 130 metres off the tee, so it's a shortish par 3. Bunkers both sides of the green. I mean, look, depending on club choice, could be anywhere from a wedge to an 8-iron, depending on where the tee box is, but this one seems to be a green light special to go at it. The sixth hole, my third hole, will be the sixth hole. It's a par 5, 510 metres, so it's a solid par 5. Slight dogleg to the left and OB also up the left. Fairway opens at the corner at around about 240 metres, so definitely a driver hole, but important to get a good one away because that really will be the determining factor as to whether or not I can have a crack at the green in 2 or whether it becomes a genuine 3-shot par 5, depending on where that tee shot goes. And also, to be fair, depending on potentially the wind, if it's with the wind versus into the wind. If it's into the wind, it'll be a 3-shotter for me without a doubt. The seventh hole is another par 3, a little bit longer than the fifth, but not too much. There's a bunker back right. There's grass bunkers on both sides at the front. That could be interesting because, there's certainly times when they can be quite a lot lower than the putting surface. So I think on this one, the tip is going to be to make sure I take a club that's going to get me to the back half of the green, try and avoid some of that potential trouble getting up and down if I miss the green. Then we move on to the eighth. The eighth is a par 4, 410 metres, so it's a strong par 4. It does have a slight dogleg to the left. We'll need to keep the tee shot to the right, as it does look like the left trees is where all the trouble is on this hole and would definitely bring double into the equation. So, having that aim point up the right-hand side of that fairway, I think is definitely the go, and not getting tempted to try and take on the corner. The ninth hole that we move on to is another par 4, 359 metres. It's pretty straight. Looks to have a semi-shared fairway with the 10th. So keeping that, keeping left off the tee is definitely the play. And absolutely it's a driver hole, no question. The 10th is another par 4 coming back the other way. Again, pretty straight hole, 340 metres. It's up the middle of the golf course, so it's driver city, no question. We move on to 11, which is another par 5. It's 490 metres, slight dogleg to the right at about 360 metres a turn, so it's something for the second shot, but it is important to keep the drive on the left side to have absolutely any chance of getting up near the green in 2, otherwise you'll be blocked out by that corner. The 12th we move on to, there is another par 4. This is a short one, 285 metre short, straight par 4. Has a long, narrow green surrounded by bunkers. I really feel like this could be the risk-reward hole for a lot of players. I think the play here is either to hit driver to get it as close as possible, or just hit a mid to long iron to the fairway to leave a full wedge into the green. Hard to know and make that decision without actually seeing the hole. So that's definitely one that I will be having a look at when I get to the tee box. And, also probably will depend a little bit on how driver is going up to that point. 13 is another par 4. It's 360 metres and straight. It is narrow tree-lined fairway. It does look a driver hole, but must just step up and hit a good shot. There's no two ways about it on that one. 14 is a par 3, very short, shortest hole on the course. Looks like it's about 100 metres. So it does have water short of the green and a long green, so that could play a variety of yardages and will make club selection very important. I think the trick there is going to be making sure to take enough ammunition to comfortably get it to the putting surface. 15 is par 4, 340 metres, slight dogleg to the left, again with out of bounds up the left side. So similar to the 4th, my starting hole is take driver but keep it up the right-hand side. 16 at par 3, 130 metres, another long green, so it's going to be interesting there on club selection with the actual yardage. Then we have 17, a par 4 at 360 metres with a dog leg to the right at the 150 metre mark. Now this is interesting because this might force a fairway wood off the tee because the run out on the corner is about 215 metres, so it's going to be interesting to see what the trees are like on the right-hand side as to whether or not we can cut that corner or have to play a fairway wood and then leave sort of a slightly longer second shot into the green. 18 is par 4, which is 355 metres. It is straight and relatively open. My notes here say grip it and rip it, so looking forward to that one. And then we go to holes 1, 2 and 3. To finish off, hole number 1 is a par 4 at 346 metres. There's a slight dogleg to the left. It looks here the ideal play is to hit driver up the right side and leave a wedge into the green. There is a bunker on the right side of the green, which is interesting because depending on the slopes of the green, that could be real trouble missing to that side. But again, probably won't really know until we get there and have a look. Hole 2 is a par 4, 311 metres, doglegs to the right at approximately the 250 metre mark, 250 metre through the corner to the trees on the far side. So drivers still look the play at my distances, just need to keep it right of centre. And then the final hole I will play is a par 4 at 299 metres, so another risk-reward hole. Has a slight dogleg to the right. Seems like the fairway widens a bit at 220 metres and there's small trees through the corner at about 250. So I should be able to keep a driver in play there. Just important to keep it away from going through the corner. So just right of centre seems to be the play to leave a short gap wedge in. There are bunkers on this hole on both sides of the front of the green. So yeah, interesting. Doesn't appear to be the longest course going around, but from what I have been told, it is tight and certainly will favour the straighter hitters with some big trees there on the fairway. So that is the plan, Pilgrims. That is the plan. That's at the moment what I'm thinking I'm going to try and attempt to do as I get out there. But we shall see if there's any force changes from that plan on the day once I eyeball the course. Alrighty. There is one more tip that I've got from, actually two more tips. So we'll go to the second last tip from Andy Walker and see what else he's got to say, because I feel like he's been on a roll here lately.
All right, so next thing, make sure you take some snacks and make sure you're hydrated. Number one thing for your mental game is to make sure your brain has the fuel to be able to function properly. So you're going to get to 12 or 13 holes and you're going to be dehydrated. You may not feel hungry, but certainly you've already used a lot of energy. So make sure that you've got something to refuel, something that you're able to consume that will maintain you for the rest of the round.
That is actually a great point, one that I quite easily could have forgotten. I, as you probably know, have never been a great snacker on the golf course. I've never really been a great snacker in general, to be perfectly honest. But I do absolutely get the importance of making sure that you keep up a bit of food intake during the round, the importance of that for decision making, and even the benefits that the research suggests that it has on fine motor skills is actually super important. So I will definitely be going and getting some stuff to carry around on the golf course, not any doubt about that whatsoever. So nice work, Andy Walker, for reminding me of that one. So, look, one last topic that I have previously struggled with, and I think talked about a few times on a few episodes, is imposter syndrome. It's definitely there. I've only sneaked into the round on a 9.2 with the cutoff at 9.4, so I know I'll be one of the higher handicappers in the field. But this is what I choose to tell myself. I have had to qualify to get into this tournament. I did qualify, so I deserve to be there. End of story. And also important to remember that nobody cares what anyone else is doing. So there is no point with any hang-ups and any nervousness and any embarrassments or any of those things. This is an opportunity to get out and play some tournament golf with some really good players. So let's just get out there and go and enjoy the experience. That is my goal. That is what I want to do. I'd love to play good golf, but if I don't, that's okay. And that is a real possibility with stepping into any tournament. And I think if you're not prepared to accept that, then don't do it in the first place. So I have to accept that that's a possibility, and that will give me the freedom to hopefully go out there and put good swings on it. So that is definitely the plan. And that is pretty much it. That is pretty much the preparation for the weekend. So I'm hoping that out of that list, then that gives you all something to think about. And you never know, maybe some ideas that could help you prep for your next big event. To say whether that's a tournament, whether that's taking a few dollars off your mates, that really doesn't really matter. Whatever it is that it's important to you, hopefully this gives you a few ideas on how to approach it a little bit better. But as always, if you've got any suggestions or any ideas that you think we've missed or anything that you think I need to think of, there won't be much time because I think this is going to get released about maybe 24 to 48 hours before I tee off in round one. So please get that through. Get in touch via any of our social media channels. Share your thoughts and let me know. And I will be back with Andy Walker in person next week to debrief the experience and tell you all how we went. But for now, I think we'll probably hand over to Mr. Walker to wrap things up. And otherwise, we'll talk to you all next week.
Last piece of advice, and probably the most important piece of advice that I could give you, and that is when you're on your way to the course, I know it's going to be about an hour or so's drive, you need to put yourself in the best mindset possible. And then on the way home, I mean, you need something that you can celebrate your round with. I know you might be a bit tired and you just need a little bit of energy just to hype you back up again. There's only one possible thing that you can do, which, we do most episodes on the show, and that is to rock out, Pilgrims.
Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, Pilgrims.